Hello and welcome. On September 2nd, 2023, Pete Homer, Natty Homer, and Zoe Homer, and your friend and mine, Jan Mandala, sat down with Tom Lopez, the genius writer, producer, and director behind the Fourth Tower of Inverness, Moon Over Morocco, Jack Flanders Adventures, and other radio plays that have inspired us since the early days of the peace and love movement. Mr. Lopez was gracious enough to set us down in his beautiful mansion on the Hudson River and delighted us for 3 hours with great tales from his life. Thank you, Tom. It was a wonderful experience, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in and listening to this excellent retrospective by Mr. Tom Lopez. Enjoy.
Technical and stuff.
He's getting weird.
Were these actors, engineers, artists of other stripes?
Well, let's see. Some were. They were there. Some had no connection, just loved the idea of living on the land, but they were connected and helping to put the place together or helping to raise the money for the place and so on. And there were also, some people knew back in Philadelphia and some people from Montreal. And so some were, and most of the women ended up cooking. I have to admit that, unfortunately.
Well,
And we actually had someone, and she was to give you an example, she was Terry, and she came from New Orleans. She ran the public library down there, before, and she was married to her husband, who was a lawyer, and Larry was a lawyer, and so she came up, and so she liked to cook, and she sort of oversaw cooking,
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, we decided that if you cook, you don't do dishes,
Nice.
and some
Love that role.
some people like Larry, who was the business manager, he refused to do the dishes.
Oh.
And Larry lasted about 2 years or a year and a half, something like that. And at that point, because we kept going broke, and Larry just would spend things on, not that, well, he actually spent himself, bought himself it was used Ferrari with Rango's money. And then they blew it up a few months later.
Oh, jeez.
And so we had certain extravagant things that were going on. No one pocketing, but so most of us felt we'd be lucky to last a year here. Really. It was, because when I looked at the checkbook and all these checks, and we had no idea what they were for, like when we bought a Nagra, takes 12 D cells, but it's a great machine.
That's a beautiful machine.
And
Nagra 3.
Larry's first words to me was, I'm gonna put this in your name. And I said, no, I'm not paying for it. Rango's paying for it. He said, I said, come on, we could be gone in a year.
Yeah.
So a lot of craziness.
Now, did you find that there were, that this was kind of a particular hub for activity, as in the house itself, or did you find a growing community of like-minded artists and
Well, at the time, the locals were pretty right-wing. Still are.
Yes.
This area. We soon realized that
Did you ever have trouble with the authorities around here in that regard?
there were some things that I think had that we got a bit crazy. But generally, Rango, who was living here for about the first 2 years, he realized that, I mean, we all realized it, because there was nothing locally,
Nothing.
people were anything but hip. I mean, they
Yeah, oh,
just,
yeah.
you know, they were still back there, you know,
Yeah.
50s or something.
Yeah.
And so he started community center in Fort Miller, and he put in like game machines and all sorts of things, and it's mainly for the kids.
Cool.
And so it kind of cooled out that,
Yeah.
that we were, because we wanted
Because you were doing community service.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a good approach.
You know, at some point, we had somebody from Vermont who wanted to do an album here, and Sweet Pie was the name. Sweet
Okay.
Pie was a barrel house piano player and a nudist.
Okay.
So we said, Sweet Pie, we don't, you don't have to wear your codpiece inside, but when you're outside, I mean.
Please.
And what happened was, someone was driving by, Sweet Pie, who would wander back and forth, but at least he'd have his codpiece, saw
The
a
codpiece.
skinny body
Oh, yeah.
walking from the studio to here,
Oh, yeah.
put the word out,
Oh, God.
there's new chicks.
Oh.
And suddenly we have all these fucking cars driving.
No kidding.
And we
God.
were sure noticed at the time.
Then you
I
became
mean,
oddities.
no women inside or out went topless or anything. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know, and
How long did that last?
Sweet pie.
it lasted for a while, a few weeks anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you know, with then fewer people who were kind of disappointed. But
Where are the chicks?
Yeah. I want to see titties.
Yeah.
But you were asking about the music.
Well, I was curious about whether whether you felt like Fort Edward or just the larger, greater Glens Falls, Albany, this area felt like that it was a bit of a haven for other like-minded people, or even.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No,
This was a kind of a bastion.
Yeah, we stayed completely to ourselves because there wasn't.
Well, when I mentioned, you told me, you said that
we did New York City.
Sure.
Yeah.
New York City, Montreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, less Montreal, mainly New York City.
How did you get involved in putting the Fourth Tower on WRPI?
Well, the Fourth Tower, what was really behind that was like, do you know who Captain Beefheart was?
Sure.
Well, when I was in Philadelphia, I did an interview with Beefheart.
Oh, I've
His
listened to
album,
that, yes.
Yeah, Troutmask replica.
Oh, yeah.
And I flew out to LA to interview and stayed at his place. It turned out he was so friendly. And the thing was, the record company, Frank Zappa's record company, was called, what the heck, whatever the name of the record company was. But,
He was one of the first independents, right? He had his own record company.
yeah, exactly.
He invented the form,
I
pretty
think
much.
it was, who distributed it? Well, anyway, RCA maybe. Anyway, probably not RCA. He was the one that, they never told him I was going to interview him. No one ever told him. Now, he had a promotions man, not blaming Zappa, had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
He had a promotions man, and who was very friendly and blah, blah, but and I go there and I'm setting up my mics and he's kind of looking at me in an odd way. And then I started to interview him. Now, Beefheart does not talk like normal people. You have no idea. If he answers a question, you have no idea what the fuck he just said. None whatsoever. Because it may have animals or insects in it, and which had nothing to do with your question. And,
That's great.
I mean, to give you an example, later, I mean, because he was such a nice guy. Whenever I was out in LA, I'd stay at Beefheart's place. And I remember once showing up, and and it was like, it was just starting to get dark. And I started talking to Beefheart. He was outside, you know, and we were talking. And I would go, blah, 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 and he'd go, beep, beep. That would be his answer. And I'd listen, and then I realized he had it down to its essence. He could talk and just say something in the simplest, most direct way. And also, too, he would never say, what do you think of this? He would say, how does this feel? And when he talked to you, you felt it here. It had nothing to do with your brain. It bypassed that.
Interesting.
And he would talk to you, but he would talk to there. No.
Wow.
I gotta listen to more.
And even though
Beefheart.
he's looking at you, it's where you're hearing.
Wow.
So I learned about communication from him. In fact, he was the one, I played him some little bits that I had done, you know, like 3-minute bits in Philadelphia. Because he asked me once, you know, what have you done? And he said, no, you should be doing longer pieces. And that's what's inspired. Because then I went up to Philadelphia, or up to Montreal, and I started to write the Fourth Tower when I was up there. And using I was going to use some of for Lady Jowls. Okay, she could do Lady Jowls, and he could do Wham Bam Shazam, and he could do, you know, and so these characters started, but then it came down here, and so probably sat for a year, and then I started writing it again. And
So a lot of your characters were based on the core actors that
Yeah.
you had, and you knew them as friends, and so you knew their personalities, and so you sort of wrote to them.
Like Laura Esteman, you know, knew
Yeah.
and decided, oh, yeah, she could do the Mandolare.
Yeah.
And